My girlfriend of 22 years cheated with her married boss. When I confronted her, she falsely accused me of abuse and stealing $50K, but she showed up drunk, confessing everything, and I recorded it. Her family, who abandoned me, never saw my legal revenge coming. I'm 28 years old. I work as a software developer, and I need to tell this story because what happened about a year and a half ago basically destroyed my life completely, or at least that's what I thought at the time, though it turned out not to be the case in the end. But I'll get to that. The thing is, when I was 6 years old, I met my best friend, Amanda, and for 22 years, I thought I knew her better than anyone in the world, that we were soulmates, or whatever you want to call it. You know, that person who's always there and would never betray you. Well, turns out, I was completely wrong. Let's start from the beginning. Amanda and her family moved in next door when I was 6 years old, and I remember perfectly the day I met her because my mom basically pushed me outside and told me, "Go say hi to the new neighbors. Be nice." I was super shy as a kid, but Amanda came running towards me with this huge smile and said, "Hi, I'm Amanda. Do you want to see my rock collection?" And just like that, we became best friends. We spent literally all our time together, went to the same school, played in the backyard, did homework together, everything. Her parents, William and Carol, were great too. William was ex-military and could be super intimidating with that deep voice he had, but he was always cool with me, and Carol treated me like I was her own son. For years we were just best friends, like siblings almost, until junior year of high school came around and something changed. I don't know exactly how it happened. Honestly, it was like one day we were watching a movie in her basement like we'd done 1,000 times before, and suddenly, I realized I was watching her instead of the screen, and she caught me looking at her. And there was that awkward and perfect moment at the same time where we both knew we weren't just friends anymore. We started dating like in October of that year, and honestly, it was the most natural transition in the world because we already knew each other, so, well, my parents were happy, her parents were happy. Everyone said we were the perfect couple and that we were going to end up getting married. We went to different universities, but not too far apart. She went to study marketing at the University of Connecticut, and I stayed closer studying computer science, like 2 hours away. We did the long-distance thing for 4 years, and honestly, it worked pretty well. We'd see each other on weekends, during holidays, and there was never any real drama between us. After graduating in 2019, we got jobs in Hartford, her at a marketing agency and me at a software company, and we decided to move in together to a small but nice apartment on the outskirts of the city. Everything was working out exactly like we'd planned since we were like 17, you know? We were going to live together for a couple of years, then we were going to get engaged, get married, have kids, that whole story we'd always imagined. The first 2 years living together were amazing. Honestly, we had our routine. We adopted a cat named Mr. Whiskers, an orange one-eyed cat we found at a shelter that Amanda loved with all her heart. We'd make Sunday dinners, watch our shows. We were happy. But like in 2021, Amanda started working later. She told me her boss, Richard, was giving her more important projects, and she needed to stay late to impress and get a promotion. I understood completely. Like, I also sometimes worked late when there were deadlines, so I didn't think anything weird. She started going more often to networking events and client dinners. And I'd tell her, "It's okay, babe. Go, do your networking. I'll stay here with Mr. Whiskers watching Netflix." Looking back, obviously I should have seen it coming. But when you trust someone you've been with literally half your life, you're not looking for signs that they're cheating on you. Amanda started being more distant, like in mid-2022, less affectionate, always on her phone, and when I'd ask her if everything I was okay, she'd tell me she was stressed about work, that Richard was very demanding, that the company was going through changes. I tried to be the understanding boyfriend, made dinner, cleaned the house more, gave her space, all those things you're supposed to do when your partner is going through a tough time. In October 2022, everything went to shit. Sorry for the language, but there's no other way to describe it. It was like 2 inches the morning, and I woke up because I heard Amanda's phone vibrating like 1,000 times in a row on the nightstand. She was asleep, and normally I would never look at her phone because privacy and trust and all that, but something in my stomach told me to check, like a really strong hunch. I grabbed her phone and saw a bunch of messages from someone saved as Richard Work, with hearts and things that were definitely not appropriate for work messages. Things like, can't wait to see you tomorrow, and last night was amazing, and photos I'm going to describe, but that made it very clear what was going on. I sat there in bed with the phone in my hand, feeling like someone had knocked all the air out of my lungs. I read all the messages. There were months of conversations, and I discovered that this guy, Richard, was like 43 years old, was married with 2 kids, and apparently Amanda had been having an affair with him for like 6 months. 6 months. Half a year where she had been lying to me every single day, kissing me when she got home after being with him, falling asleep next to me after sending him messages telling him she loved him. I felt like I was going to throw up, literally. I got up and went to the bathroom and just sat there on the floor trying to process everything. I don't know how much time I spent there, but eventually I went back to the bedroom and woke Amanda up. I told her, I need you to wake up right now, and she looked at me with those half-asleep, confused eyes, and I showed her her phone with the messages. Open. I watched her face completely change, like she went from confusion to shock to panic in a matter of seconds. She started crying immediately and saying, I can explain. It's not what you think. But I just told her, you need to leave. Now. I want you to pack your things and get out of this apartment right now because I can't even look at you. Amanda started begging and saying she was sorry, that it had been a mistake, that Richard had manipulated her, that she loved me. But I was like in shock or something, because I didn't feel anything, just emptiness. I told her, you have 2 hours to pack what you can, and then I want you gone. You can come back for the rest of your stuff when I'm not here. She packed while crying, while I stayed in the living room with Mr. Whiskers, who probably sensed something was very wrong because he stayed in my lap the whole time. Like at 5 inches the morning, Amanda left with 2 big suitcases and several boxes, and I just sat there on the couch staring at the closed door, unable to believe that 22 years of friendship and 11 years of a relationship had ended like this. I thought that was the worst thing that could happen, that nothing could be more painful than discovering that the person you trusted most had betrayed you like that. But oh God, I was so wrong. Like 3 days later, I was at my office working, or trying to work, because honestly I hadn't slept well and was basically functioning on coffee and pure anxiety, when suddenly 2 police officers showed up at my cubicle. They told me, "Are you Jordan? We need you to come with us. You're under arrest for domestic assault, abuse, and theft." I just stood there like, what? What are you talking about? And they put handcuffs on me right there in front of all my coworkers while they read me my rights. They took me to the station, and I found out that Amanda had filed a report saying that I had hit her during a fight, that I had been verbally and emotionally abusive for years, that I had threatened to kill her when I found out about the affair, and that I had also stolen her mom Carol's jewelry that was supposedly worth like $50,000. I was in total shock, like I couldn't process what I was hearing. I told the police, "This is completely false. She cheated on me. I never laid a hand on her. I never stole anything." But they said they had to investigate, and that I was going to have to stay in custody until the bail hearing. I spent 3 nights in jail, which were the worst nights of my life without exaggeration. I called my older sister Olivia, who's a medical resident and has always been like a second mom to me, and she came immediately with my parents to get me out. My dad had to pay the $25,000 bail, money they really didn't have just sitting around. And when I got out, my mom was crying, and my dad had that disappointed face that was worse than any yelling. Olivia was the only one who believed me completely and kept telling me, "We're going to fix this. We're going to prove she's lying." But things kept getting worse. My job fired me because the company policy was 0 tolerance with this type of accusations, and also I had missed 3 days without notice because I was in jail. The news came out in the local newspaper because apparently Amanda had gone to the media saying she was a victim of domestic abuse and wanted to raise awareness. And suddenly everyone in our town knew my name and face and looked at me like I was a monster. I lost friends. People I'd known since school stopped talking to me. They sent me hate messages on social media. It was a complete nightmare. I had to move back in with my parents because I couldn't afford the apartment on my own, and I also didn't want to be there with all those memories. Mr. Um, Whiskers came with me, obviously. He was the only good thing I had left from that relationship. My parents were weird with me at first, like they believed me. But there was also that doubt in their eyes, you know? Like they were thinking, do we really know our son? Is it possible he did these things? That hurt almost as much as everything else, feeling like not even your own family completely trusted you. To top it all off, Amanda and her parents sued me civilly for the supposed jewelry theft and for emotional damages. William, her dad, that ex-military guy who had always been like a second father to me, sent me a text message telling me that if I ever came near his family again, he was going to destroy me. Exact words. Carol, her mom, gave an interview crying about how I had betrayed their trust and stolen her grandmother's jewelry that had sentimental value. I was living in an alternate reality, like none of this could really be happening. My lawyer, a guy named Marcus who basically worked for almost nothing because he saw I didn't have money, told me that Amanda's case had a lot of holes. There was no medical evidence of abuse, no prior reports, no witnesses, the supposedly stolen jewelry. She didn't show up anywhere, and there was no proof I had sold or pawned it. Basically, it was her word against mine. But he explained to me that, in these cases, people often tend to automatically believe the woman, especially when she's convincing and has a coherent story, even if it's false. Months passed that were the darkest of my life. I'm not going to lie. There were days when I didn't want to get out of bed, when I thought it would have been better if everything just ended, you know what I mean? But Olivia was there every day. Literally, she'd come after her 12-hour shifts at the hospital and sit in my room and force me to eat, force me to shower, force me to get out of bed. One night she told me, "Look, I know this sucks. I know you feel like your life is over, but we're not going to let that lying bitch win. Sorry, Mom, if you're reading this. We're going to clear your name, and she's going to pay for what she did." Olivia helped me create what she called Operation Phoenix, which was basically a plan to rebuild my life step by step. I started going to therapy, which honestly helped a ton even though at first I was skeptical. I got freelance programming jobs because no one was going to hire me with a pending criminal case, but at least it was some money. I started exercising again, adopted a routine, forced myself to socialize even though it was difficult. I met new people in a programmers group who didn't know anything about my situation and who treated me normal, and that reminded me that I wasn't this horrible thing Amanda had painted, that I was a normal person who had been the victim of something terrible. Like 6 months in, my lawyer told me the criminal case was probably going to be dismissed for lack of evidence, but that the civil case was still there, and it was possible I'd have to pay something even if I wasn't guilty, just to avoid a long and expensive trial. That infuriated me. The idea of giving even a penny to Amanda and her family after everything, when they had done to me, but Marcus explained that sometimes that's how the system works, and we had to be practical. I insisted I wanted to go to trial. I wanted everyone to know the truth, but he told me it was risky and expensive. I got a better job like 8 months in, a tech company that valued my skills more than the drama of my personal life, and things were slowly starting to improve. I still had horrible days where I felt completely overwhelmed by everything, where I'd see Amanda in my nightmares lying and destroying my life over and over. But I also had good days where I felt like myself again. Mr. Whiskers was my constant companion. That one-eyed cat saved my life more than anyone will ever know. It sounds dramatic, but it's true. And then, like a year after all this hell, on a Saturday night around 9, someone knocked on the door of my parents' house. I was in my room with Mr. Whiskers watching a movie, and my dad came up and told me, "There's someone here who wants to see you," and when I went downstairs, there was Amanda at the front door. She looked terrible. Honestly, she had red, puffy eyes from crying. She was thinner, looked like she hadn't slept in days. My first reaction was to close the door in her face, but she put her hand on the door and begged me, "Please, Jordan, just 5 minutes. I need to talk to you." Something in her voice made me let her in. Or maybe it was morbid curiosity. I don't know. I told my dad it was okay, to stay close just in case, and I took Amanda to the living room. She started crying immediately and told me, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I lied about everything. You never did anything to me. You never touched me, never stole anything." I just stood there, unable to believe what I was hearing. I said, What the fuck are you saying, Amanda? Why now? Why did you destroy my life if you knew it was all a lie? And then she told me everything. Turned out the affair with Richard was worse than I thought. It wasn't just something physical, but they had been planning to leave their partners and be together. Richard had promised her he was going to leave his wife, that they were going to get married, that they were going to have this perfect life together. When I found out everything and kicked her out, she ran straight to him, expecting him to keep his promises. But Richard basically told her it had just been sex, that he was never going to leave his family, that she had misunderstood everything. Amanda was devastated and furious, and in her twisted head, she decided it was my fault for kicking her out and ruining her chance with Richard or something. Honestly, the logic didn't make much sense, but basically, she wanted to punish me. She told me the accusations were completely made up with Richard's help, who had advised her on how to make the story more believable. Her mom's jewelry, she had stolen herself and sold it to have money to move to a new apartment, and blamed me for it. The bruises she had shown in photos she had done to herself, and the threatening text messages she had presented as evidence were fabricated or taken out of context. Everything, absolutely everything, had been a calculated lie to destroy me because she was angry and hurt and wanted me to suffer too. As she was telling me all this, I felt like I was floating outside my body, like it couldn't be real what I was hearing. I asked her why she was confessing now, and she told me Richard had cut off all contact with her, that her life had also become hell because people at work had started asking questions, that she couldn't live with the guilt. She also told me, and this was what impacted me most, that my sister Olivia had contacted the company where Amanda and Richard worked and had started asking questions about expense reports and work trips, and apparently they had discovered Richard had been using company funds to pay for hotels and dinners with Amanda, which was fraud and could get him in serious legal trouble. At that moment, something in my brain clicked, and while Amanda kept crying and apologizing, I took out my phone and told her, "Repeat everything you just told me, from the beginning," and I recorded everything. She didn't even notice at first because she was so immersed in her confession, but when she saw the phone, she went quiet. I told her, "I need you to specifically repeat that you lied about the abuse, about the threats, about stealing the jewelry, everything." And Amanda, maybe because deep down she knew it was the right thing, or maybe because she didn't care about anything anymore, repeated her entire confession in front of the camera. She said her full name, the date, and explained in detail every lie she had told and why. When she finished talking, I was shaking, like literally my hands were shaking while I held the phone. Amanda looked at me and said, "What are you going to do with that?" And I responded, "What I should have been able to do from the beginning, clear my name." She started to panic and begged me not to use it, that she was going to go to the police herself, that she was going to fix things. But I told her to leave my house and that I never wanted to see her again. The next day, I took the recording to my lawyer, Marcus, who literally couldn't believe what he was seeing. He told me this changed everything, that it was direct evidence proving my innocence and that we could use to countersue for defamation, emotional distress, and a bunch of other things. We submitted the recording as evidence in the criminal case, and the prosecutor dropped all charges immediately with apologies. We also sent it to Amanda's family's lawyers in the civil case, and they withdrew the lawsuit literally the same day after hearing it. But I didn't stop there because I was furious, like angrier than I had been in my entire life. With Marcus's help, I filed a countersuit against Amanda for defamation, damages, and a bunch of legal things I honestly didn't completely understand, but that sounded good. We also contacted the local newspaper that had published the original story about my supposed crimes and gave them the recording. They published a follow-up story with a headline, something like, "Man falsely accused of abuse, vindicated after recorded confession." And suddenly my phone wouldn't stop ringing with messages from people apologizing, telling me they had always known I was innocent, even though they hadn't said anything at the time, offering me support. My sister, Olivia, turns out she had been an incredible amateur detective. She told me she had contacted someone in HR at Amanda's company, someone named Deborah, and had asked casual questions about Richard and his work trips. Deborah, who apparently hated Richard because he was a horrible boss, had given her information about expense reports that didn't add up and that had started an internal investigation. When everything came to light with Amanda's confession, the company also started investigating the fraud, and Richard ended up being fired and possibly facing criminal charges. Amanda's dad, William, sent me a message like a week after all this. It was short, and basically said, "I have no words to apologize for misjudging you. You were like a son to me, and I failed you when you needed me most. I don't expect you to forgive me." Honestly, I didn't know how to respond to that, because part of me still loved William and Carol. They had been my family for 2 decades, but they had also turned their backs on me when I needed them most. In the end, I responded something like, "I understand you defended your daughter. I would have done the same, but the damage is already done." It wasn't the most mature response maybe, but it was how I felt. The defamation case against Amanda took several months, but in the end we won. The court ordered her to pay me like $150,000 in damages, although Marcus explained that I'd probably never see that money because Amanda didn't have those resources, but what was important was the principle. My name was clear. The truth had come to light, and I could start rebuilding my life for real now, without that black cloud over my head. It's been like 6 months since all this was resolved, and honestly, I'm still processing everything. I went back to my apartment, the same one I lived in with Amanda, because I decided not to let her ruin that space for me too. Mr. Whiskers and I are fine. He's now like 5 years old and still the coolest cat in the world. I work at a new company that offered me a better position after reading about my case. Ironic, right? My relationship with my parents improved a lot, especially after they saw I was right all along. Although there are still awkward moments when we talk about that period. Olivia keeps telling me I should write a book or something about this whole experience, that it could help other men who are falsely accused, but honestly, I'm still not ready to relive all that in such detail. I'm still in therapy, working on trust issues that I obviously have now, after the person I trusted most in the world betrayed me in the most horrible way possible. I've been on a couple of dates, but nothing serious. Like the idea of trusting someone like that again terrifies me still. I know Amanda lost her job too. I don't know much more about her because I blocked all contact and asked my family and friends not to tell me anything about her. The last I heard, she had moved to another state, probably to escape the shame of all this. Sometimes I feel bad for her, which is weird considering everything she did to me, but I guess that's just who I am. I can't completely turn off 22 years of friendship and love, but I'm also still angry. I'm probably going to be angry for a long time, and that's okay. My therapist says it's part of the process. Last week I was organizing some old boxes and found photos of when Amanda and I were kids, like 7 or 8 years old, smiling in my backyard in summer. I stared at those photos for a long time, trying to understand how that little girl who looked so happy and good became someone capable of doing what she did. I guess I'll never really understand. And maybe I don't need to understand. I just need to move forward with my life and be grateful the truth came out before it was too late. There are still difficult days where I wake up, and the first thing I think about is everything I lost. The time I lost, the innocence I lost about trusting people. But there are also good days where I feel grateful to have survived this. To have a sister like Olivia who never doubted me. To have a one-eyed cat who purrs on my chest when I have nightmares. And I guess that's enough for now, going day by day, slowly rebuilding the life Amanda tried to destroy, and trying not to let all this turn me into someone bitter and cynical forever. It's a work in progress, but at least now I can work on that without having to prove my innocence at every turn. That has to count for something, right?